33C, the COVID economy. You're welcome back. It's a real true education, not fake news. I'll be back in my Kingsford studio tomorrow sometime, and maybe it'll be better place for making videos. But anyway, there's no harm to have a look at the present situation. And I see there that Rand Paul, he's a famous Republican senator in America. I think it's Kentucky is the state he's in. And he's very well known, and he's criticising the printing of all this money in America. They're printing it and pumping it into the economy like there was no tomorrow. And he makes a point, like, why don't we just print all? Why do we need to work at all? Why do we need to go to work or to do something to earn our money? Why not just government give it out every week and be done with it and just continue like that? Now he makes the point that America has printed $2 trillion recently, and in 1980 the amount of debt to GDP was 55%, and it's now 128% of gross domestic product. And he makes a point that experts, I know someone he claims knows, says the tipping point of debt is 77%. So when you go to 77% of GDP, that huge debt results in job losses, and the more debt, the more lost jobs you lose. Although there was a lot of debt created by Trump and the jobs did improve, nevertheless, borrowing for simply to pay for the economy was never considered a good idea. It was always an option. Governments have control of the printing press, so why don't they simply keep doing it? And there's a very good reason for that. It doesn't work. It didn't work for many countries that tried it. Now in 2009, the Irish had a huge debt problem, and they taxed our people. We had years and years of austerity to pay for the debt. And now we seem to have the same debt, and there doesn't seem to be any need to tax anybody for it. Now, the European Central Bank is the largest creditor. The largest creditor is doing what they call buying bonds. In other words, they lend essentially to the government. They do it kind of indirectly through an intermediary, which kind of gets them round the rules. But Article 123 1 of the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union prohibits the ECB from buying the bonds of member states. It's not meant to do that, and yet it's doing it to beat the band. That's the treaty's been broken. And you know, when I'm talking about energy and environment, I talk about them breaking these treaties as well. Now, the ECB prohibits the treaty prohibits the ECB from issuing overdrafts to member states, and it's doing that. It's doing that by an indirect method. Ireland borrowed 20 billion in 2020, and it's going to borrow another 20 billion in 2021. That's a total of 40 billion. And don't forget, a few years ago we were talking about how we were going to manage. We had something like 64 billion to pay off from the bank bailout. So what's happening in Ireland is they're pouring money in, and they're pouring it into the ordinary people, to the ordinary everyday people, to keep the economy from collapsing because of the COVID restrictions. And a lot of money is going on construction. People are not going on holidays, and they're not going here and there, and they want to do up the house when they have the chance because they're at home. It's the same with me on the farm. I'm always doing little jobs I always intended to do because I can't get out. The problem for me is I have to cook my own lunch when I'm at the farm, and that takes 3 hours, well no, 2 we'll say, this time of year, because I get hungry. And that's an inhibitor. So you can see that as I have more time and as I have more things to do, the problem of having to cook for myself when I'm away over at the farm is a restrictor. It's cutting me back. So what's happening now, because this money's been poured into the economy and people can't go abroad and they're doing this bits of work, is that there's a shortage of skilled labour, and skilled labour can't be got. Cannot get skilled labour. Many people could take on a lot more work. Many people involved in building and everything else simply cannot take work because they can't get the skilled labour to do it. So so the cost of skilled labour is going to rise. The electrician, the handyman, is going, his skills will rise. And after the what do you call it, the plague, the Great Plague, I'm just checking my time here, and after the Great Plague, way back in Britain, that's what happened. The cost of skilled labour went way up. There was a shortage of labour, and it had a refreshing impact on the economy. But in that case, thousands and thousands of people actually died. So what happened was the skilled labourers and all those people died. But in this pandemic, there's relatively nobody dying. There's effectively the deaths are minuscule. They're nothing at all like what they were in the plague. So we have this artificial plague of government overreacting to COVID-19. So the economy now is not restrained for the lack of money; it's restrained for the lack of skilled labour. I mean, I have little jobs to be done, and I let them out to people, and I want to get contractors like guttering and that. Can't get anyone. I booked a man, I think it was 3 months ago. I never heard from him since. And that's the same everywhere. So the other thing is, by printing money, of course, they're robbing savings. The people who have a little savings are being robbed. Their money's going down. And another situation, small publicans, for example, and businesses are getting €700 a week. So if you have a small pub and your wife is a partner running the pub, and many of them are, run it together, they can get €700 a week off the COVID fund. And I estimate it'd take 560 pints of beer to make that money, or 80 pints a day. If you think of it, if a couple are running a pub and to sell 80 pints a day, I mean, you're only really open from maybe, when it gets going right, maybe at 12 o'clock, and you're closed at 12 o'clock at night, and so you have 80 pints to sell in 12 hours. So how many is that? So 12 tens, 120 is not that many, so it's about 12 eights, 96, or 12 sevens. So you'd probably be selling about 7 pints an hour. And in the daytime, that's good going. And then you have all the hassle and the cleaning with that. This way you get this for doing nothing. And so there's a happy feeling among small publicans and small businesses, and they think it's great. And I see the smile on their face, and they're laughing. They're closed. Oh, we don't mind me closed. It's great. They're getting this handy money. And this handy money is coming into several sectors. And meanwhile, there's nothing being produced, and it's coming out of the state's coffers. So as Rand Paul makes the point, why not flood the economy with printed money? Why not run the whole economy on printing money forever? Just the government print the money, give it out, and everyone have a good time. And of course, the same reason for that is, if that happens, there's no incentive to work at all. Why would anyone produce anything? I mean, I work hard to produce my bit of my cattle and that. Oh, why bother? Why not close up and sit back and enjoy the weather when it gets good? Sit out in the sun when it's nice, and when it's not nice, sit in and have a nice time inside and all that. The reason is that the economy can't sustain that. It's effort and work that makes the money for people. Now, so we cannot tax anymore. There's no more room for taxation, and but we're borrowing more. And some say it must be paid back. I think that's baloney. The guys I know that's getting this money will not pay it back. They can't pay it back. You have to tax in relation to income, and there won't be income. And the big question is, will people bother going into these pubs again? I mean, there's going to be that kind of a feeling when you got a... They're not going to want to see customers coming in, because they're going to say, oh, we have to work for you. We didn't have to work for when the government was paying us. So where is the money going to come from for this? And nobody seems to know. Definitely we know the value of money will fall. We know the value of money will fall. I remember an aunt home from America telling me in the 60s that a dollar was $2.4 to the pound sterling, and the pound Irish sterling was on a par with the euro, and now it's 134. So you can see that the Americans didn't inflate the money as much as the British and the Irish. There was huge labour problems in Britain and Ireland in the 70s and 80s. The Americans didn't go that far down that route. And so if we look at Amazon, like, they're booming, all those things are booming, whereas the small shops are being forced to shut. People are buying online, and will they go back to buying in shops? And I fear they won't. I think that's a great pity. So do shopkeepers and publicans, do they not realise that this is a short-term buyout, a short-term bought off? They're being bought off, and it can't last. They'll kill their business, and then this money will be spent, and it'll be less value, and they're going to be gone. Can they not see that's what's happening? It's very strange times. Some say it's happening all over the world, and therefore it won't matter, we'll pull out of it again. Children not educated right, and all this disruption. For what? For what? A couple of people sick, a couple of people getting a bit of a dose and a bit of a cough, and one or two dying, some of them by the government's own hands in nursing homes. It's a strange thing. It's very unusual. This type of behaviour, printing money, never worked before. It never worked before. And will it work now? Many people say, oh, it will. I think that a lot of the people who are now off work and have been getting this money will not readjust to work. They'll not have the mojo to go and do it. And we just have a severe skills shortage. We won't be able to get anything done. I'm fairly handy and I can do a bit for myself. We won't be able to get anything done, and we won't be able to pay for the skills. That only the skilled people will only work for the wealthy, and the wealthy will pay well, and the ordinary people will do without. You won't get people on the council to go and do work. You won't get anything, and we're going to be shafted, and that's what's happening. We're being shafted by a panic-ridden nanny state government. For what? For nothing, for absolutely nothing. It's a complete and utter overreaction. Folks, with that, so we leave it. I'm not explaining everything to you there. I'm simply giving you my thoughts on it, that America, a few people are beginning to ask this question. And don't forget, I kind of supported Trump, but Trump always believed in printing money to beat the band. Why not print it? What about negative interest rates? Something never seen in history before. How is this going to pan out? And I actually think it's just that people elect governments now that don't want to give them the bad news, don't want to give them any trouble or any tears. And why did we go through all this period after the collapse in 2008? What was all that about? What was it about in 1990? Do we think this time we can get away with it, that the rules of economics don't apply anymore, and that money is not a store of value, and that it doesn't actually count for anything? You don't have to work for it, you have a good time. I thought we tried this before, and I thought we found it didn't work. And but we have another look ahead now, of more stuff. And just thanks for watching in. We'll let you go with that. Sure, give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and do comment underneath what you feel. Don't be afraid to. You can put in a name. You don't have to give your own name. You can use some other make-up name like Man on the Moon or something, and you can comment and give genuine comments and try and make them logical. So with that, folks, I'll let you go, and thank you very much, and we'll see you back for something else in a while. Okay.